All right, scholars, our next topic is the dual topic of connotation and denotation. And this is one that I love, and it's so important to our communication, both as speakers and as writers, also as listeners. So we're going to talk about denotation very briefly because it's really straightforward, and then dive a little bit more thoroughly into connotation. So denotation is the exact definition or meaning of a word as it's given by the dictionary. So hot would mean having a high temperature, and that's very straightforward, right? So you don't know a word, you look it up in the dictionary, that definition is its denotation. Connotation, on the other hand, is the feeling or the emotional connection that a word can make somebody feel. And so connotation is like all the extra stuff communicated with the specific word choices that we're making. A connotation can be positive or negative. Now, the key thing about connotation is that it's, first of all, it's not just like straightforward and easy to see in a dictionary, and people can have different connotations for different words. And secondly, the context matters a whole lot. Sometimes the same word can be both a positive connotation or a negative connotation, just depending on how it's used. So if we think about connotation in terms of our communication as speakers or as writers, we really want to think about how we can use connotation to our advantage, either by making sure we're using the word with the right connotation to convey what we want to, or to make sure that we're like really connecting with our audience and thinking through how they are going to connect with our work. So let's look at a couple examples to really clarify what this actually means. Here are the words economical and miserly. So both of them have a pretty similar denotation, a pretty similar definition. They both can mean that you don't spend a lot of money. But would you rather be called economical or miserly? So for example, if I say that you are a very economical person, it means that you're not spending a lot of money, but it has a very positive connotation in that you care about your finances, you don't want to spend more money than you have, and it's very positive, or at the very least, it's neutral. Miserly, on the other hand, is a very negative connotation word. A miser is a person, like especially an old man, who just won't spend money on anything. Like penny pinching is another term that comes to mind. Ebenezer Scrooge is a miser. You do not want to be described as miserly. So thinking about your skills as a writer, if you are describing a character, you have a lot of power in how you connect with your readers, your audience, if you are describing a character as miserly versus economical. And there would be times that you would want to use either one of them, but you need to be aware of what connotation your audience will have in mind depending on the word that you're using. Now, as I said, some words can have this different connotations just depending on how they're used. So here's a word, immature. And if you're thinking about immature, you might immediately think, oh, that word has a negative connotation. And you're not wrong. If I describe a person as being immature, man, that is not a compliment. That person is not going to appreciate being described as immature. On the other hand, if I use it as a scientific term to say that a tadpole, for example, is an immature immature stage of development as a species, that just means that it's young and it's not fully developed yet. It's not mature. And that's a very neutral or maybe even positive connotation. It's certainly not negative the way that describing a person as immature would be. So we carry a lot of power as speakers and as writers to think through the connotations of our words and to connect well with our audiences. We can also think about the choices that authors or speakers are making when we are the audience and really carefully think about how they are communicating to us beyond just the surface level of the words that they're using. So go out into the world and use this power carefully to connect well with your audiences.